heat, light, water, and noise pollution.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the four biggest categories of concern.
It is recording.
Welcome back to the Common Liberty Podcast. I'm Jeffrey.
I'm Eric.
And today we're going to load the clip in our first episode about AI data centers. There are numerous issues that are emerging about AI data centers all across the United States. And recently we've conducted some research into the matter and attended some legislative meetings. But Eric, why don't we start with the PJM connector. Today is Saturday, June 13th, 2026. Let's load the clip.
Yeah, I mean, I think the PJM interconnector is a big thing we should talk about because we are all connected. The PJM interconnector, for those who don't know, is the largest interconnector it connects a bunch of different states to allow power sharing in case of disasters, overloads, all kinds of different reasons. But the largest one in North America is the PJM. It covers Delaware, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, parts of North Carolina, almost all of Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and the District of Columbia. And the biggest places that data centers are being built right now are Virginia. They have, I think it's called Data Center Alley. And you should see some pictures of it. It is just buildings of data centers and
hyperscale.
Yeah, and noise, lots of noise, and it's and I mean, yeah, it's those big hyperscale AI data centers that are using the every available gaming graphics card on the planet, making it unavailable. And that's another thing that is regularly not talked about is it's making computer parts more expensive. Straight up, like we live in a connected world.
Increasing costs for consumers.
And, you know, we need a computer. I mean, you yourself are looking at a computer and I can honestly say, like, where we would be looking in the $1,000 range, we're now looking at the $1,500 range.
Right.
And, you know, when I could easily have said a year ago, you know, you're looking $800 to $1,000, but like, I also bought the RAM kit in my computer for $100, and now it's running for over $400. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So the concept of the PJM interconnector is that the energy needs of both consumers and commercial properties, as well as industrial properties, are all interconnected. And this headlong rush into legislation which poses the question, how much of this can we do, rather than should we do this at all, is one of the cultural points of reference we need to explore with the PJM interconnector.
Oh, yeah.
People in West Virginia, West by God, Virginia, have a history of recognizing the destruction of the environment from coal mines with modern mountaintop removal and a very long history of acid mine runoff and creeks and streams in rural areas turning orange because of pollution.
I remember as a kid seeing that. I mean, I grew up in western Pennsylvania, southwestern Pennsylvania, not too far from, probably only a 40-minute drive from West Virginia.
Right.
And I remember those creeks running orange as a kid driving to school. You know, I remember, you know, back behind my house, I think there was some old mining activity going on, but like I knew under parts of where I lived, they were even mining because part sinking in, like the environment, making sure that we are protecting the people's lives around this industrial stuff, because it comes back for hundreds of years, you know.
Right.
Remember my dad hitting the ground with a sledgehammer and you hear an echo. and you're like, like it goes boom, boom, boom. Like,
What's under the house?
and well, the thing is we had learned that there was one under one corner of our house, and like it had already been jacked up in the past, I guess, and then resold. And we, of course, didn't know anything about it. But like, you know, the destruction of the environment with this kind of stuff is absolutely, and people's, not only that, but people's health as well. This affects our water.
Right.
It affects food, everything, you know, and even with data centers, it's a lot of that infrasound that we've talked about, that low
sound pollution.
And they are building these data centers at a breakneck pace. But the thing is the power that they're consuming generally comes from consumers. We have to pay for these power needs. And I mean, let me pull up a article I have over here.
Right. Is this the Jacobin article?
No, this is the this is a Spotlight article. I think I'm pushing the wrong. There it goes. This is. There we go.
Okay.
This is, you know, the PJM interconnector. They're already talking about there being an energy shortfall in by mid 2027. So 1 year from now,
Exactly.
they are already going to be meeting an energy shortfall. And we're still just like pushing for these data centers.
Right.
And we've seen over and over again, they don't care about the rules. They'll find a loophole and get around it.
Well, that's a great point, Eric, about the rules. And maybe we should talk just a little bit about the frame of reference here in Pennsylvania and the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Constitution, Article 1, Section 27, frequently referred to as the Environmental Rights Amendment to the Commonwealth Constitution. Article 1, Section 27 reads, "The people have a right to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment. Pennsylvania's public natural resources are the common property of all the people, including generations yet to come. As trustee of these resources, the Commonwealth shall conserve and maintain them for the benefit of all the people." And critics often read this strong language as creating a separate or constitutional right that can be violated by activities that adversely impact air, water, natural resources, scenic resources, historic resources in Pennsylvania. But sometimes those claims are complicated. And so in this first episode about AI data centers, we won't get into the why about data centers so much, but let's talk about the context of some of the drought that is being experienced by 11 states in the western portion and northwestern portion of the United States. Right now, farmers in the Dakotas all the way to Utah, which is a hotspot for data centers, and then further south, of course, to Nevada, New Mexico, that area.
Yeah, I know. I think it's Kevin O'Leary has been in the news recently a lot about his proposed data centers, and he is just absolutely spitting the craziest stuff you've ever heard. He's like, according to him, because we're, against, harming people were Chinese spies, and of course.
Right. That's propaganda.
Typical.
But we know that Kevin Leary is one of the billionaire celebrities on the Shark Tank, and he is the major proponent of the, I think it's called the Matador, or is that in Texas? There's a particular name for the Stratos project is the one in Utah. 62 square miles, 42,000 acres. Okay, roughly.
I think they had to actually cut some of that back recently.
That's right. Roughly twice the size of Manhattan, or a hyperscaled AI data center larger than Washington, D.C. Okay, spanning 62 square miles. It ends up targeting 9 gigawatts of electricity at full build-out. And we know that amount, the 9 gigawatts, is likely to increase year after year. So we're talking about the PJM interconnector and the absurdly rapid increase of hyperscale data centers in Virginia. And in my home state of West Virginia, I recently had a chance to explore some of the rural areas where a proposed AI data center will be located. So we've also talked a little bit about how the PJM interconnector crosses these states. And Pennsylvania, being one of them, is known for the Marcellus Shale natural gas deposit, and fracking that natural gas is problematic with the gray water, the wastewater, but also in terms of the number of pipes, the sheer number of pipes necessary to deliver the natural gas to power stations or other sources that will fuel the AI data centers.
And I mean, some of them are even looking at, and that's why you see like people like, what's his name? It's not on the top. He's not the richest anymore. Bill Gates.
Right.
Don't hear about him as much anymore.
We hear about him in the Epstein files.
I heard about
Mr.
him in the
Gates.
Epstein files. Exactly. But he's been a big proponent. He's been pushing for more nuclear power because they're trying to think, how are we going to power this? Because a big thing about data centers that people don't understand is only about 40%, 45%-ish goes to actually powering the computers. The rest of it's cooling and just like keeping the lights on so people can see. But like these computers are hot. They have to be water cooled, which is another giant, massive issue. They have to be water cooled. They have to be temperature cooled, especially in the summer when we're already seeing parts of the West going through. I know in California they've been having forest fires caused by some of the private energy companies who aren't keeping track of their lines, and it's caused like there's already brownouts and stuff in the heat of summer anyways.
Rolling brownouts.
How is this going to get worse? And we're already seeing people in Tahoe and Nevada. I think they just got a letter saying, "Oh, your power company is going to supply power to this people in this AI data center instead."
It's
shit out of luck.
Right. It's a huge question about the water levels in Lake Mead, the reservoir related to Hoover Dam.
Oh yeah, the Colorado. I mean, you can even look back at see engineers talk about it like, this will be a temporary solution because we cannot provide water solutions. Like, they were very well aware like this wasn't going to work, but they never figured out something past that, and they're just like,
heat, light, water, and noise pollution. Those are the 4 biggest categories of concern. And in Pennsylvania, Governor Shapiro recently published his GRID, or Governor's Responsible Infrastructure Development Criteria. And these criteria are not intended to make it more difficult for these AI data centers to be constructed. It's a roadmap for companies that want to build these AI data centers to navigate the potential barriers that municipalities can raise at the local level, such as, can we limit an AI data center from being built which would have noise pollution, let's say in excess of 20 decibels, okay? Or an AI data center which would produce heat pollution in excess of an average of, let's say, 1 degree Fahrenheit, okay? And what is the light pollution, especially at night? And so many of these issues are being prepared as hurdles that a very well-financed individual like Kevin Leary or a very well-financed company could easily surmount. And at the same time, the task for citizens and local municipalities is more complicated as a result of the grid. So we have Stratos in Utah. Now the other one is Matador in Texas, north of Amarillo. The Matador in Texas is projected to be 25 square miles.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so you can drive 5 miles, and that's one wall.
Yep.
Turn right, you drive another 5 miles, that's another wall. So we got 25 square miles. Now, the Matador project north of Amarillo, Texas, is being managed by former Texas Governor Rick Perry, who was the governor of Texas from 2000 to 2015. And we know that's the time when Enron blew up and destroyed pensions for welders and other frontline workers, and also when the ERCOT energy grid in Texas failed, resulting in deaths because they were not prepared enough for colder weather. And as we talk about the drought out west, the ongoing drought, the wildfires, whether it's human error or malicious activity. There are some court cases in California about somebody intentionally setting some of the fires, like the Palisade fire or a related fire that burned down something like 7,000 residences in the Los Angeles area, I believe.
Yeah, there's, there's so many bad issues with, especially how they're doing their power in California as well, because that's caused a bunch of fires, just like them not maintaining their electrical grid as well.
The other factor that humans have no control over is the El Nino weather effect in the Pacific Ocean. And when climate change, which is real, occurs and increases the planet's temperatures, we have a greater risk of harsher El Nino systems, bringing in more hurricanes and other harsh weather to the Pacific coast of North America and Central America. So getting a grasp of the heat pollution, the light pollution, the noise pollution, and the water pollution.
And I mean, the other big thing is, like, especially bringing it back here to Pennsylvania and Erie, you know, we live on one of the largest bodies of fresh water on the planet, the largest freshwater system on the planet.
Right.
You know, what role is the Great Lakes going to play in future energy production for these data centers? Like, it's not going to be like the data centers are going to have a lot of water inside them, but it has to be like nice processed water that doesn't have any germs in it and stuff. A lot of the water we're going to be using is just from making steam from power plants. You know, there's a lot that goes into that as well. There's so many different levels at which water is being used to power these data centers. And like I said, but also, you know, we see these energy demands and we see, you know, when they do need more demand, when there are spikes in service, they will sometimes bring in generators on a tractor trailer. And these are basically actually, they're not basically. They literally are. I have the thing. They are literally jet engines from airplanes being repurposed to generate high amounts of power for data centers.
Mm-hmm.
In Texas, they brought in all these things and set them up outside, and the government was like, whoa, 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 you said you were going to do this. Oh, these are temporary. So, of course, that gets held up in court for the next 200 years. And we'll never go anywhere. This is why we need a moratorium in the state on building these things, so we can actually make sure we're building data centers properly and not destroying our landscape. And
it's not a phantom menace.
Yeah, and we need to make sure we're not destroying people's lives in the process of doing this, because like, I mean, we see, you know, Jeff Bezos lives in Beverly Hills, you know, in the Hollywood Hills and stuff. And he is famous in the area because his hedges are too high, and he just pays the fine every time.
You know, there's an interesting story
he
about
won't cut
Steve
it.
Jobs.
He just sees it as a cost to having high, you know, and this is how these rich billionaires act. They see the law as an obstacle to get around.
Correct.
That's stopping them from saving the universe, or whatever Elon Musk thinks he's doing these days, the trillionaire in chief.
Well, coming back to Rick Perry's involvement in the Matador hyperscaled AI data center in Texas. Rick Perry was one of the people in Trump's first administration. He was the energy secretary that collaborated on the lie about Burisma in the Ukraine and the Biden alleged involvement in Burisma in the Ukraine. And that was since determined to be a lie. But these are the people who are motivated to secure the land and build the AI data centers that are going to have this impact on our future generations' lives and our current population as well. So we've talked about PJM, and we've talked about the El Nino, and we've talked about farmers and drought, and we've also talked about how Palantir is increasingly complicit in the corporatism and fascism that is entering into American culture. So I think it's also important for us to give some cultural context, because we're all familiar with ChatGPT and the self-awareness possibly of Claude or Anthropos and some of these other predictive language models. Are these predictive language models aware of the evil robot characters that populate science fiction? The Terminator.
I mean, I don't think they're self-aware. I just think that they absolutely do have the ability to show the programming, and you know they're trained off of mass media, and mass media can be racist, and it can be problematic, and those things will show themselves in that language model at the end of the day.
Training AI language models can involve child labor in Africa, where people are paid $2 a day to teach AI language models. This is a picture of a fire hydrant, or this is a picture of a fire truck, okay? And to be able to distinguish between the two, okay, even though there's a common terminology there. However, those individuals, those people who are performing the basic labor of teaching the language models how to recognize images, they're also being shown pictures of really horrific results of civil wars, modern civil wars, mangled bodies. You know, we talk about the Palestinian genocide and things like that.
Oh, yeah, and there's so much AI going into, even with Palantir, I think it is, and Anthropic.
Right.
going into the military-industrial complex and the genocide in Israel and drone technologies, and like, you know, drones are particularly horrible part of everything, but like,
can local municipalities in Pennsylvania fight back against AI data centers by requiring that no Chinese components be allowed at all in the construction of AI data centers?
I'm curious to see how these things play out. Because we have a governor who, like, I have an article up here from Spotlight, and this is talking about Governor Shapiro's incentives that he has to bring in. He's talking about making standards, but I don't think he's really understanding that these regulations aren't working. I mean, famously, he talks all the time through his social media team about how he is pushing to end chatbots that claim to be therapists. And he's like, oh, we're standing up for Pennsylvania. We're standing up for Pennsylvania. I can still go online and talk to a chatbot that's claiming to be a therapist. It's not doing anything. I'm not hearing about this nationally. Like, it's only something that's coming out of his PR team.
Those are significant questions also. How do humans interact with a predictive language model? And we know that how many bottles of water are required when a single prompt is given. And it might also be useful to contrast the practices in the United States, for example, with the practices of China, which is placing some of its hyperscaled AI data centers underwater and underwater turbines to generate electricity from the undersea currents. But the water cools the AI data center.
But I mean, we also have to remember, if we're putting data centers in areas of water that can be easily accessed by humans, we're also probably pumping heat into a ecosystem, an underwater ecosystem. And I mean, we're already seeing the mass bleaching of coral and everything. So
when you kill off the krill in the ocean, that's what the whales feed on.
Yep. And there are definitely some issues. And I mean, I think it's Microsoft was doing the same. They were testing the same thing, doing them underwater. It's a lot of issues with that because you can't actively maintain it without it.
Right.
It is in a sealed container underwater, and if something breaks, it just breaks.
And how do you repair it? Right.
And the thing is you can't. You would have to lift it up and repair it, and then set it back down there with a crane.
The Fukushima earthquake in Japan about 10 years ago, a little bit more than 10 years ago, was a really great example of how a nuclear disaster can generate long-distance consequences across the world. And we're also aware that China has used small modular reactors, nuclear power, that can be transported perhaps with heavy-duty tractor-trailer trucks to be moved around and connected to these AI data centers so that these AI data centers are off the civilian grid, off the commercial grid, so that there's less impact in that way. However, as residents of Pennsylvania, we're really mindful of the 3 Mile Island disaster. And, we also think about Chernobyl in the Ukraine.
And, I mean, the thing is like, I just don't think I really don't think these incentives or regulations are going to be effective. Because I, in my life, have seen over and over again businesses mostly just doing whatever they want, sometimes there's some consequences, but Amazon just had a guy die in one of their warehouses, and all the people were telling them, keep working, don't touch them. And
we've heard stories about taking a short break to use the bathroom in an Amazon warehouse, and the quotas and productivity, and what are family sustaining wages?
Yeah, and exactly. And we talk about, there's every time they go, oh, there's going to be so many jobs for the data center. I'm like, it's an AI data center. There's not that many people in it. It's mostly a big warehouse full of computers doing stuff by itself.
And the construction labor is usually from out-of-state sources.
Yeah, I mean, to build something of that scale, you usually need people that know how to do it. And
Right.
you need to contract people from out of state. And oftentimes, people in a particular area, they're building other stuff in the community that's already happening. So a lot of these incentives that they're saying are going to happen locally don't really exist. There's also all the jobs AI is taking, and we prepared our entire lives that jobs that were going to be taken were like blue collar workforce jobs. And that's not what's happening. They're taking white collar, like admin role jobs,
middle management, service oriented positions.
Things that you need to be educated in, that are highly repeatable, and, editing, another one is just editing a piece of a document, right? And this isn't getting rid of editors, right? It's making one editor's job, the ability to do the editing job of 5, because there doesn't need to be all these pre-edits and stuff. The AI just does it, and they read it over once and then send it through.
Right.
And it's reducing the amount of work needed. Another one is we have Claude code and Vibe code and all these other things that are making like the nuance, like the boring stuff in computer programming, just have it available to you. And I mean, I've heard from software engineers, they feel like they're superhuman with the amount of work they're able to get done with Claude code. And it's not really that like Claude code is doing like the masterful thinking that they are. It's doing the boring, you need to push this button. Like it's something they had done a million times and it just does it. And it's a lot of the bloat that's just done. But like when a lot of the people coming into software development who were told for the past 20 years to get into software development, they can't find jobs at the moment because all the people that they have right now are just able to use Claude code, and they don't need to hire new people into the field.
Layoffs at Apple, Google, Microsoft, Facebook in the thousands.
Oh, yeah. And, California, we talk about California. Like, California isn't going to be the most affected state by AI. Not even close. It's going to be something like North Carolina, a state that has a lot of these admin, middle management, white collar, educated roles that are just not being replaced because it's being taken over by AI.
Charlotte, North Carolina is where the corporate headquarters of Bank of America is located. And of course,
banking and actuary services is another one because it's just so easy to, like, it's simple math.
Warren Buffett, the billionaire investor, his company, Berkshire Hathaway, is a major investor in Bank of America. So even though he's based in Omaha and he has a very long track record of successful investment, we have to look at what these major corporations are investing in and how that impact translates to the average person. The average person who simply wants clean water to drink, clean water to prepare food in, and to be able to enjoy the outdoors and nature. Some of these issues, we talk about the cultural context of AI data centers and the rise of the internet.
Sorry, I forgot to switch it back over to us. There we go.
We're back.
We're back.
And we can focus on the history of some of the cultural context of the rise of the internet and the rise of automation and the rise of computers. The American science fiction author Philip K. Dick, the Ernest Hemingway of science fiction, Philip K. Dick, wrote several short stories and also some amazing novels about issues that affect how we perceive reality and the human mind, and how the interaction between computers and humans blurs these lines. And there's been several very interesting movies made, like A Scanner Darkly, based on Philip K. Dick's story, or The Minority Report, also a very interesting movie that raises questions about predictive crime and arresting somebody who hasn't actually committed a crime yet, but according to the authorities is guaranteed to do so.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is a great topic because we see the AI freaking security systems at casinos triggering wrong people right now. I mean, I saw one. It was like the AI said, "Oh, it was like a 99% sure this was the right guy." It wasn't. Like, you looked at the pictures and it wasn't the same guy. This guy's, you know, and everyone there just trusted the AI. All the police, this guy was just locked up in jail as the wrong person for a while because no one believed him. They trusted the AI over him.
Right.
And AI is terrible. Like we were trying to figure out who some people in a picture were, and it labeled every one of them wrong. And they're all like state congressmen. And
in Philip K. Dick's short story, Total Recall, we read about the subject of implanted memories. And does that process expose real memories that were hypnotized away for various reasons of the story? Okay, Total Recall. And what is blurring the line between fact and fiction and reality and fantasy? And as we see more and more AI data centers being constructed, we're going to see this line blurred because of practices such as geofencing, where internet ads, smartphone ads, and we're not even getting into the surveillance part of it, because anybody who has a smartphone is going to be within some geofencing for advertising purposes.
And there's a lot of weird.
How are AI data centers monetized? And what does the monetization represent? It represents real people.
Yep.
And there does seem to be some wisdom in the Amish way of life. And not necessarily a Luddite perspective of entirely rejecting technology, but it's incumbent upon us to ask the questions: how is this emerging technology going to affect the environment? How is it going to affect society? Maybe we should take a moment to run a montage of some photos that...
I was just about to ask if you wanted to talk about some of the environment, because I know you were talking about some of the data center stuff that they want to build in West Virginia.
Right. West Virginia is the best Virginia.
The best Virginia. And we have some pictures here of, I mean, not really any data center at the moment, but I mean, all this nature here is probably going to be gone soon.
So
all this wild and wonderful West Virginia.
Right, almost heaven. So a couple weeks ago, I took a road trip to visit some of my childhood friends in West Virginia, and I drove down Interstate 79, crossed the border from Pennsylvania into West Virginia, and so I stayed the weekend in Morgantown in the almighty nation of Monongalia County, but I took a side trip south of Morgantown. About a half hour south is where you reach Fairmont, And just south of Fairmont, before you get to the next big city on I-79, which is Clarksburg, in between Fairmont and Clarksburg, is the area known as Hog Lick Hollow. Okay, so this is a former farming community where there still is some cattle herds, and one side of the holler, the mountain on one side, has experienced some mountaintop removal, some preparation for an AI data center. And on the other side of the holler, up on the other mountain, is an auto parts salvage yard. So you drive south through Fairmont on Route 250. You make a right-hand turn off onto Eldora Road, and then you're on Hog Lick Run. Okay, that's the road that goes through Hog Lick Hollow, and it's about a 5-mile road. What is Hog Lick? Hog Lick is a stream, and this time of year, it's swollen with a very strong current, and of course, just being called Hog Lick suggests that once upon a time, lots of hogs were raised in the holler, okay? And from the bottom of the holler to the top of the mountain, people will be affected if there is the construction of this AI data center. So people like the Sierra Club in West Virginia are very concerned about the potential impact of not just this AI data center, but the ongoing impact of mountaintop removal and acid mine runoff from coal mines.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something else we need to look at. Like, there's already a history of land misuse in West Virginia. Like, we need to be thinking about what we're doing. That's why I keep saying, like, we need a moratorium on them in the state. And
some states and municipalities, especially some localities, have established moratoriums. Not in Pennsylvania.
I know you can't in Pennsylvania, sadly. They will.
Is it possible to run some of the video from West Virginia?
Absolutely. Yeah. I will keep. That's a good picture. I think we're going to use that one as the thumbnail.
There we go. The dead end. Some cattle in
Here's
Hog
the
Lick
video.
Holler. So this is Hog Lick. There's the stream. Welcome back to the Common Liberty Podcast. This is Jeffrey, and I'm on location in Hog Lick Run in central West Virginia. These are the forest, trees, and streams which currently host a small, rural West Virginia farming community and may soon have its very own AI data center, hyperscaled, to not meet the needs of Mother Nature. So, a glimpse at what some of this property looks like, and our interest is in preserving the environment.
Sadly, I do not have one in this gallery. I just have that one.
Right on. Well, we can definitely bring that back into a montage of additional photos.
Yeah, we will also, like we said before, we are going to be talking more about data centers and AI, because we haven't even gotten into Flock and
Right.
We barely touched on Flock.
There's plenty of copper to be had inside a Flock camera.
Plenty.
And we also know some software engineers that have professional expertise in this field and have observed some of the changes over the last few years.
Security concerns, but
civil rights concerns.
It also brings me to think, like, what could we be doing to protect ourselves?
Right. It's not too late.
And it's not. Like, we need to make sure we are going out and telling our local officials to push these zoning changes to push against AI. Like, it might not stop data centers altogether, but like if you can stop it in your backyard, that's probably a safe start.
Right.
And if you can make a company go, no, I'm not going to fight here. It's not worth it. I can go somewhere else. Like, every little bit of this fight can help. And I think pushing our local politicians, but also we need to remember local politicians are, receiving information from these big data companies. They are,
And money.
Lobbyists, trips, and like I ran into this article on, I keep pushing.
And politicians are people also that will be affected by the pollution.
Oh yeah,
the burden of the
a lot
AI
of them
data
just
centers.
think they're going to move away when it affects them, or they just get so caught up. I don't know what goes through some of their head, but I
We
saw
all work
this
for incentive.
article on Jacobin,
Jacobin magazine.
and it talks about a Google policy summit that happened recently it happened at Wrigley Field in Chicago. The very old, very famous,
Very historic.
Yeah, they like rented out the whole thing. They had all kinds of. This was a great article, and like we're gonna put the links to all the articles we talked about, like with the PJM, and this one just talks about power plant and power grid, like repurposing jet engines, and is great just knowledge source for some information about like how they are using jet engines to do this. But we see there was a Google policy summit, and this article in particular talks about a local representative named Ryan Bizzarro, who I've seen go to several corporate lobbying events, and this isn't too surprising to me, but
even in Kansas and in New Hampshire, in addition to the article mentioning Ryan Bizzarro of Pennsylvania, but Representative Tom Sawyer, there's a great name, Representative Timothy Lang of New Hampshire, from Kansas to New Hampshire to Pennsylvania, and even including Senator Sean Bennett of South Carolina, where he's the chairman of the state Senate's Ethics Committee. Google recently invested $9 billion, billion with a B, in a new data center expansion in the state.
Yeah, and here in Pennsylvania, we had massive investments from Google and a giant investment from Amazon Web Services. And, Ryan Bizzarro is an interesting person to talk about with this because he is the chair of Pennsylvania House Democratic Policy Caucus and one of 4 Pennsylvania lawmakers that were there. And this article goes through and talks about seems like a very fun event at, the Wrigley Field. And it talks, all about the different panels they went through, everything. And I think this article right here just sums it up so well to me. Google wines and dines lawmakers for the same reason they are funding Trump's ballroom. The American people increasingly dislike their products and distrust their leadership, so Google resorts to buying influence. And this is some troubling stuff because we already don't have. There's a lot of apathy towards politics because they feel they're bought out by big companies, which, we're buying. And, like even Mr. Bizzarro posted some pictures of his event here. I'm sorry. That's an Instagram post from his paid trip to Israel in December. Here it is. Google State Policy Summit. There are lots of, here's one of the things they're talking about. I think there's one picture where they're talking about China on one of those boards behind them.
Ni hao.
Oh, look, here's one where they're talking about site selection. They're giving the whole spiel. And as community activists, we do not have the resources that Google has. Here's some wonderful pictures. Oh, look, they rented out all of Wrigley Field. Look at that.
It's a beautiful baseball field.
It is a beautiful baseball field. Must have cost a pretty penny to rent that whole thing out, though.
Baseball's a classic American sport.
Oh, look at that.
Wrigley Field's a great place to see it.
Oh, got the whole tour.
The locker room, right?
Oh, yeah. Here we're talking about, U.S., China, because we need to compete with China and everything. And
power capacity.
Everything, of course. And this is the kind of stuff that frustrates the hell out of me, and our politician, this is the stuff people get mad about.
Right.
People don't look at this as, oh, I went and learned about something new. Everyone looks at this and goes, oh, you got a free vacation to Google to Wrigley Field. And
to discuss Emperor Palpatine's energy plan.
I think they even talk about in that article in Jacobin, they talk about a congressman going, oh, if I got reimbursed a couple bucks for attending this event, so be it, no, you accepted. This looks like bribery to everyone who's looking at it. This looks not bribery, but it looks like the corruption that we're tired of,
It looks like the wrong questions are being asked.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up today's episode of the Common Liberty podcast, let's think again about some of the cultural context here that Philip K. Dick offers in his story called Imposter, where a man who works for the government and is close to a major world leader goes hiking, and he becomes kidnapped by an alien influence that clones his body and clones his mind and turns part of his body into a bomb. And then this replicated individual returns to society to associate with these world leaders. And as he's recovering, there's an investigation into who is this person. And the movie was originally scheduled to be released into movie theaters in September of 2001, okay, when a major world event happened, the World Trade Center attack, okay, September 11th of 2001. But this movie, based on Philip K. Dick's short story, Imposter, was moved back to January of 2002 to lessen the impact and to perhaps blunt the questions that Philip K. Dick is raising for future generations. And we are part of that future now, grappling with AI data centers. So thank you very much today for tuning in to Returning to the Common Liberty podcast. Please share our episode, like and subscribe. And as always, load the clip. I'm Jeffrey.
I'm Eric.
Thanks again. Have a great day.
Have a good one, guys.